at the end of the day, like if I'm looking at moonshots, it's about repurposing humanity in the age of machines. So it's that human X AI. It's where we're having all the fun.
What do 5,000 HR leaders actually need right now? Not in theory, in practice. Marc Coleman has spent 15 years answering that question. He founded Unleash in 2011 as a small HR conference in Amsterdam and built it into one of the world's largest HR technology conferences with events in Las Vegas and Paris that draw Fortune 500 CHROs from over 100 countries. Today, Marc talks with us about why nobody has budget for theory anymore, how the smartest organizations are turning events and communities into decision-making engines, and why building for the future means letting go of what worked in the past. Welcome, Marc.
Thanks for having me.
You are very welcome. So, Marc, before we dive into this wonderful episode, you started your career at Microsoft in Seattle, and then you produced events for the America's Cup, FIFA World Cup, and the China CEO Summit, before landing the much more interesting career of HR tech. What is it about you that keeps gravitating towards building communities around big ideas?
I guess it's the world we live in today. It's good to be in the human being industry. I love what we do. I think it's more important now than ever before. I was saying to Meg a few weeks back that there's a lot of people came out during COVID and said, we don't need live, we don't need in person anymore. Actually, the world needs it more than ever. And especially now where there's so much uncertainty. I love building communities. The world, for most part, has lost its value system, religion in some parts of the world. So communities are not as strong as they used to be. And there's science in the old stuff. There's science in the history of humankind. And so I love the social animal side of things. I love what we do. It's like, a hug. 5 hugs a day is the rule at Unleash. It gets the endorphins going, the dopamine going. So yeah, it's got to be done. Staff do it, so customers have to do it as well.
I adore that. Yeah. Yeah, and I agree. There's a real strong desire for in-person experiences now more than ever, I think.
Yeah, it's the decision science of the world we live in. So especially human resources, they're living in a world of complexity like never before. It's about making better, faster, simpler decisions. And taking that complexity out. And sorry, you get that from meeting somebody else who shares the same problem or the same vision or the same excitement for I'm going that way, you're going that way.
Well, let's back up a little bit to 15 years ago when you started Unleash in 2011, and it was just a small conference in Amsterdam. What gap did you see at that time that nobody else was filling?
The gap was, it's not what necessarily I saw, it's what I heard. I was doing CHRO roundtables across Europe during the Great Recession, I think they called it at the time, 2008. And I started building quite a good reputation for myself by doing these all across Europe. So from Stockholm to London, Paris, Vienna. Just for about 6 months, the same thing kept coming up, which was the cloud, a company called Workday. And I was dear friends with the then CHRO of Aviva. And it gives you a sense, I live in Budapest. So he had an idea that if Workday worked in this part of the world, in Eastern Europe, so many different cultures and management models and languages, that it would work in any country. So that was so things like that going on. But I think I was at Chelsea Football Club. So I had lost the clothes of my past in sports events. So I was in Chelsea Football Club and I was doing a mixture of a CHRO roundtable and sports hospitality. And I totally messed it up. I totally fouled it up by doing the hospitality first. So we were at Champions League football with Chelsea FC, and John Boudreau was the thought leader on the second. And it was a bit of a crash course, bringing all of that motley crew to what was meant to be thought leadership on day two, but ended up being a little bit of sore heads. Those sore heads during the coffee breaks were absolutely, it was about 4 or 5 people that were like, Mark, you've got to do HR tech. It's going through massive change. It was most of the conversation was about the cloud. Everything in Europe, Middle East, and around us was on premise and clunky and not working and really expensive. So, yeah, it was just a wave that I had to jump on. A little bit like it's different. The AI, like where we're at with AI, is completely different. But the cloud was kind of you. It was an easier wave to surf than the current environment. So it was as simple as that.
I love that you kind of put together a community and experiences first, and then you listen to the people in that community, and then you kind of figure out what's next, right? That versus like, hey, I've got this idea, so I'm going to create a community to talk about. You know what I mean? Like it's a kind of like an outsider in way to approach it, and that's amazing. I love it.
And it was simple. It was a simpler time. You guys know what it looked like. Things were probably a little bit tired in the industry in terms of events. So it was time for something new. And we didn't have a clue. I did not have a clue. That first event we did, we messed everything up. The lanyards were tangled. The seat drops we were doing at 5 o'clock in the morning, so we only got 1 hour's sleep. So I'd never done a conference exhibition style event before. So that was kind of my first foray. But what we did get right was the content and the people in the room. And we've been doing our best to get that right since. So
it's what it's all about, man. You get the content wrong and there is no event, right? So well done.
Yeah, well, I will say there's 2 things. You can get the content wrong, and if the networking is good, you save yourself. But it's like if the networking's wrong and the content's wrong, then it's a big fail. So that's the event organizer's nightmare.
Some missteps at the beginning, but certainly you hit a nerve. But over the last 15 years, you've been kind of reinventing the event multiple times over. How are you able to separate signal from noise and figure out how to reinvent?
I think it's in my veins, to the detriment of my poor team. I think we're going right up. I'm just like the shark. I've got to be moving all the time, and I love change, and it's not for everyone. It's a brave new world. We probably talked about, every generation or every decade that word brave new world comes out. So yeah, it's always having your finger on the pulse. But I always like to go back to Steve Jobs on the mobile phone. It's like the customer doesn't know what it wants necessarily. So you can put all your you can listen to the customers 100% of the time and deliver against that, or try, but I'm not sure it doesn't give you the DNA to be different. So I can go out there and produce, and we've never done that. We can go out there and produce a HR conference, and it starts with keynote. It's got case study panel, and you've got 8 on 8 every day, and it's all HR leaders. But the reality is, HR leaders are not always very good at giving away trade secrets, and they'd probably get fired if they did. So I talk about the politician effect. When you ask a politician a question, they don't answer it. You ask the question again, and they'll skin it back 3 different ways. And I would surmise that if you talk to GE or Red Bull or Coca-Cola, they'll talk the talk and they'll give a certain amount of insight, but they're not going to tell you how they saved X amount of money or how they're more competitive than PepsiCo or one another. It's very difficult to do. And it's even harder now with AI. It's really difficult to get a company to go up and talk about, how they're using AI inside their business, because it's competitive advantage. So what I like to try and do is get source that insight and intelligence from others inside the industry. So vendor side, labor economists, CEOs, CTOs, CFOs, and they tend to call a spade a spade. So it's all about getting the golden nugget from that one speaker if they're up for 30 minutes. And I suppose that's the other thing we've done over time. Instead of being an hour long, we've gotten shorter every year. So I had Workday. Richard Doherty said it to me in Paris back in October last year. He was like, we kind of argued about you giving us the 15 minutes for the spotlight, but it does get you to think very carefully about what you're going to say. And, we're in this, I think in California, you talk about snackable content 20 years ago. It was the conversation in the Valley and the Bay Area. That's more so now, like the attention span for somebody to listen to somebody longer than 5 or 10 minutes. It's getting worse and worse, unfortunately. And so people are there. I think that's to probably answer your question, Amy, is where we're heading is decision making. So how does our customer, how does our community, our audience go home from Unleash with better decisions? Is it yes, I've answered, or I'm somewhat, or no? And if it's a no, then I feel like that's our fail. That's what I get into. That's my personality. It's kind of like I'm never satisfied with, oh yeah, we just did a good event. It's always the next. So I get, pivoting is easy for me. I kind of leave the clothes of yesterday behind me. But I've definitely woken up to the last 12 months and it's a vote for simplification. Simplify. Move faster.
Yeah, I really love that, Mark, that this is the moment where we need more of this. Is you have a really unique combination of founder type energy and innovator type mindset with the right touch points to give you better signal. And I think this is a really important pattern for most of us right now, because when you're in a moment where there's more unknowns than knowns, it is important that you have a broader sense of what's going on, that you don't just focus in a single area, because that area might be a little bit of a insular kind of thinking, but that you also have the ability to imagine different futures and to take some bets on that based on what you know today. Here's a good bet for how to move forward without the ability to be 100% confident in what's going to happen next. And so I like how you've not only just built that for yourself, but you've built that for the entire community to bring together more of that idea sharing, which I think at this moment is exactly what we need. And we don't necessarily need to share our secret sauce, but we do need to share how to think about the problem in a way that gives us more agency and ability to navigate it. And so I really love that you're offering that to everybody out there, because I think that's what we're all yearning for.
Thank you. I think everyone has the same data. The ones who win make different decisions. That's it. It's the choices you make. So it's none of as my finance manager this morning was like, fingers crossed. I was like, oh, it's not fingers crossed.
So speaking of decisions, you have fundamentally changed what that content needs to do. And you have talked in the past about moving from benefit-led content to decision-led content. And I think that you've shared that the test is, did this session help you make a decision for Monday morning? So tell us a little bit more about where that came from and what that actually means in practice.
So where that came from, one of our biggest customers is L'Oreal. in France, and they've got, we've had this account for, I think, maybe 9 years now, and 38 brands, and they bring over 100 HR leaders to Paris every year, and they meet up before the show, and they integrate their annual HR leadership retreat with Unleash now. And we do expeditions, so we do hosted events at L'Oreal as well. And so I grabbed at one of the events, was like, what's that? And it was like, that's our Unleash journey book. And I was just like, because I'm always hearts and minds. So that for me, they're the things I look for. They're the things where I feel like, oh my God, we've had this much influence over a company. And so it's a journey book. It's to help them to make better decisions. So, and they use Unleash like, it's like we concierge for them. So the journey is the whole week. And so they have their leadership retreat. And it's, they're all there to make different decisions. They're not, it's a decentralized operation, right? So it's not so many different brands. And the journey book, might be we're looking for new compensation model or compensation software in Asia Pacific. And they will want to meet all the providers for that. And so if we're thinking about startups, they might want to see what the breakthrough technologies are. If they're looking for quick validation, they might bring somebody like Josh Burson to the L'Oreal Lounge for an hour session. And it would be just Q&A. So, but they use the show like nobody else. And I suppose it's that the journey book equals decision making. So they do the 2 days before Unleash, come to Unleash for the 2 days on site, and then meet after that. And everyone's going back to Hong Kong, going back to New York, with the right decisions. And it's better, faster, cheaper way of doing things. So, and there's a difference, like transformation is a team sport. I always say that. It's like, well, there's two ways to it. You should kind of close the door when you get in home at 5 or 6 o'clock and potentially start crying if you've had a good transformation day, because it's not easy, right? So,
well, I usually come home crying from Las Vegas anyway. So yeah.
There's that too. Or you do it there.
That's true.
So I think for the idea is born out of them, in short.
So rather than just kind of showing up and see what happens, they have decided these are the things that I want to achieve. This is how I'm going to go about doing that. And so they have a real measurable set of results that they can then return with to make those Monday morning decisions. Is that right?
When you boil it down, it's quite simple. Speakers ask me all the time, like Mark, and they'll ask me 5 minutes before they get on stage. So what does good look like? Ultimately, it's what's working inside your company, inside your team, and for you. It's the selfishness of me, you, then team, then company. So what's working, and then equally people want to know what's not working, so they save themselves a lot of money and time and pain. And it's that forever thing, a sense of where are you going? So I can stand at the back of the ring and go, oh, okay, we're not Google. We don't have Google budgets. We don't need to have 10 interviews to interview somebody. No, that's not us. Or we're at more advanced, or we're 1 year behind that. It's like, or we don't need to be on this AI train right now. We'll let everyone else spend the money first and make the mistakes first. So, there's many ways to skin it, but that's it in short, right? And so you get a metric. So for both of you, speaking on other events out there, you're normally rated out of 5. So you might get a 4.5 or a 4.85 or whatever, depending on how many people pressed the button and voted for you. So if I ask you, Amy, to come to Unleash, I need you to send everyone in that room either there or back to their office, being able to make better decisions. They will be asked the question, has Amy helped you make the right decisions? It gets you to think differently about what you're going to talk about and how you're going to present. Because there is a problem in the HR industry right now. There's a lot of talk the talk and not enough walk the walk. And that is the problem. So it's how do you fix that problem? Otherwise, it's just we're talking vanity metrics and we're talking buzzword bingo as the industry is always accused of. So I think that's the difference.
Tying it back to the whole journey book concept, each attendee's goals is very personal and tailored to them. It's super important for your speakers to be very clear in their abstract. It's not good to have generic content because it has a different angle of what they're trying to achieve. So you have to be really specific about what it is that you're going to give to the audience.
Yes, correct. And, we've hundreds of speakers. And we work with sponsors, so we don't control all of the content, right? So there's that. And so you need a sprinkle of salt. I've seen the best speakers in the world fail on stage. And you just need to know your audience and what they're looking for. But I think probably an easier way of going at this, if somebody comes to Unleash for 2 days, the goal is like one sentence can change your thinking, your career path. The people that you meet become your friends, become your colleagues. It's your next job. You just, that's the influence we have over our audience. I've seen people get together and be married 3 years later. So we've kind of seen everything.
I seem to remember someone getting married around Unleash that's on this call here, right? Didn't am I misremembering that, or wasn't it close to Unleash? Yes.
That's true. It was the week of Unleash because I got in wicked trouble. We were even to get married 2 months after COVID closed down the world. So we kind of lost not just the business, but all our deposits, and we were that close to our wedding. So we had a lot of people coming to Budapest for that. So, but yeah, we did a Vegas. I don't know how that happened. I would kind of look on TV and kind of go, that's weird to get married in Vegas. I've been done it.
Memorable weird is not a terrible thing. So
we love it. We're on it. We're having an adventure. So
good.
It's a nice story.
So let's talk a little bit about the gap, potentially, as you see it or not, between what boards and C-suites are asking and pressuring about and what HR is actually prioritizing and delivering. What do you see there? And, what is the hope for how the conference can close that gap?
I was talking to Meg about this before. I mean, the big thing is AI is outpacing organizational design. And so companies are focused in the wrong area. They think it's all about tools when it's actually about human beings.
As we think about transformation, execution, we've always understood that the hardest part of any transformation is the people. This has been 30 years of my career in tech. Tech is one thing, but the hard part about tech is getting the value from tech through the organization. And the bigger the organization, and I would argue the more successful the organization has been in the past, the more difficult this can be because you've got a lot of past experience to make you believe you know what you're doing and it should continue to be done in the way you've done it in the past. It is really clear that organizations don't just need new org designs. They need transformational leaders to emerge, to execute within the org these changes. And so we have a really unique moment for HR leadership to help with building and fostering and promoting and championing these transformational leaders to help the business create these new orgs that are going to thrive in all of this change. So I think there's a real opportunity for HR to step up into a really important role. Unfortunately, I think that the conversations are often focusing within HR discipline of how do we have AI in our own tool set?
So to put a question to that, Marc, are you seeing that HR is really just focusing on AI adoption within HR, or are they expanding their view and looking at the full workforce to redesign and change it? And are they doing that within this community?
I'm seeing the latter.
Great.
But Meg and I have talked about this before. There's the good, the bad, and the ugly in every function out there. Like there's good CEOs, bad CEOs, there's good sales, bad sales. The real tension is probably, we're talking about boards versus HR. So if I think the real tension right now is that boards are optimizing for capital efficiency while HR is managing human complexity. The complexity card is the one that's come up for me the most. So when if I talk to Jackie Canny at ServiceNow or Amy Coleman at Microsoft, that complexity conversation comes up all the time. And so I think the leaders who win are the ones who can translate between the two worlds. Or maybe another way of saying it is, the enterprise AI conversations are kind of happening at two levels. At one level, leaders are talking about transformation and new ways of working. And at another, the boards are asking the hard questions about costs and productivity and capital efficiency. I think the organizations that win are the ones that kind of connect those two conversations. So
I agree.
And so leaders that are coming to Unleash, wanting to move into that state, like, what do you recommend to them? What is their journey book at Unleash in order to accomplish that?
do your homework. There's a lot going on. That's our biggest complaint. It's the number one complaint since forever. There's too much going on at the same time, and too many good things going on at the same time. And that can be very frustrating. You can see the musical chairs. You can see people are getting around. I've always found it depends where you are in your career and your moment. You'd be surprised. You might want to go to the show and just feed on technology because you've got a burning desire, you've got something to fix. Or you just might want to get that lens out and go and see Ethan Mollick, who is...
Huge fan of Ethan, yeah.
In terms of future of work, future work and AI, there's no one better than him.
Right.
He is the best. I've had a few of our customers who was it? It was Adam Holton from GE Healthcare, CHROs, was telling me about his experience with Ethan 2 years ago. He was like, my colleague, he turned around and my jaw was on the floor for about 20 minutes watching this. And so, there's the inspirational stuff. It's that golden nugget, the gold dust I talked about earlier. You might want to go see Andrew Flowers, who's a labor economist, because you need to understand what's going on in Germany or France, or you might want to go to see Josh, because Josh is, he's research in this industry. He is still the one analyst who takes what is a very complicated industry right now and condenses it down into 30 minutes, 40 minutes. And he's not afraid to give you an opinion.
Since we're shouting awesome people at Unleash, we must shout our amazing Jess Von Bank, who's going to be doing emceeing. And also, if you really want to get inspired by someone that looks at things from a different lens and truly understands transformation, you could not find a cooler person than Jess.
Yeah, I should get forgiven. She'll kick me in the shins for that one.
Yeah,
but Jess is a great example. I first met Jess. She was a startup back in the day, and she won the startup competition. She's one of the real thought leaders in our industry right now. So I'm so proud of what I've seen over the last 10 years. She's knocking it out of the park. And great, we're rotating as well. Great to have a woman EMC on stage again.
I want to go back to something that you said earlier, Marc, and that was that companies and specifically speakers that are actually succeeding with AI often don't actually want to share what they're doing with AI because they don't want to give up their competitive advantage. And this is a bit of a problem as a content curator because, of course, that's exactly what you want. So, how do you navigate around that, and how do you get those as a participant? How do I get the right kinds of nuggets that I need?
You've got to make your bets. You've got to get your journey book right. I think you often see it in the abstract. It just resonates with you. If I consider Peter Lynch at Cardinal, he spoke with my team. I wanted to introduce some of my new team members to some of our customers. So I got on the call with Peter, and Peter's CEO had turned around to him and had spoken about how transformational the company had become and how it was on the back of, coming to Unleash and listening to a particular session. It was like, and for me, that's where we're winning hearts and minds. So it can be one session that can change your life. At the end of the day, like if I'm looking at moonshots, it's about repurposing humanity in the age of machines. So it's that human X AI. It's where we're having all the fun.
Yeah, and I would argue that 2026 is absolutely the year that people are really being required to show results and to stop just waiting and seeing. And so I think that you could not ask for a better moment to connect deeply with other people in your industry, because this is how you're going to feel more comfortable about what it is you do next. Because I think the reality is doing nothing is a very, very costly thing at this moment. Because no more can you just kind of hand wave and say we have some LLMs in our system and that's our AI strategy. People really need to see how those AI strategies are driving results. So I think this is a great and important moment. And that's the reason I'm going to Unleash, is to spend more time with individuals and to make sure that those important ideas are bubbling up so that people do not get fixated on rehashing their results from the past and spend much more time in planning how they're going to help navigate that future for that human-centric goal that we are all looking for.
Great to hear. I agree with all of that. And I think the execution lives and dies in HR. So it's one thing to get caught up in all the tech that's out there. The companies that are getting it right are treating workforce transformation as the competitive advantage. It's not necessarily just a side initiative.
And so where are you seeing, Marc, some areas of hope, I guess, from this front where you are seeing some leaders and some teams actually accomplishing the work redesign, the workforce redesign?
Tech obviously have a competitive advantage, especially in our industry. I talked to Gina at SAP, CHRO of SAP last week. The conversations weren't, she's not talking about AI agents. She's moved on from that. She's more visionary and talking about how they're investing in people and reskilling. And it's not this kind of idea of, there's talent shortages. Another one might be Donna Mars, close to you guys. So, and I just love the story over there. They're investing $1 billion in reskilling and getting every single employee with kind of AI in their veins. So, I think there's quite a few people out there, but pioneering. If you're talking about pioneering HR, there's a few. I try to keep close to them as best I can.
Two things. You mentioned one, which is the hugs. I don't think we should underestimate the need for human connection in a real way that shows that we care about each other. But the other side of it is when we talk about investment in learning and development, I know for myself that I get a big burst of places to focus my own development as a result of coming together with other people at conferences. It sparks curiosity in a way. It gives me, as you said, like single sentence nuggets to further investigate. And it creates a path for learning that is really hard to replicate in any other way, because you also get a whole lot of additional information when you're in person than just content. And so those of us that really lean on our right hemisphere, the nonverbal part of processing intuition and ideas and innovation, there really is something quite special about being in the room when ideas are shared and new thoughts are emerging in a collective way. So one of the things that I think we should be talking about more is how these in-person experiences really matter in a world where we're trying to develop people to think AI first. It's just something that helps get you over a hurdle much more than individual self-study or a bunch of training hours. And so I do think that there is a place for content that comes through an L&D department, but there's also a place for unstructured learning that follows a bit of a journey map but has room for serendipity. So I think that's important.
100%. You've nailed it there with your last word. It's serendipity.
All that big vocabulary work.
No, but it's I'm not terribly religious, but I have always felt that serendipity has always followed my career in the world of events. To Amy's question earlier about asking me what attendees should do in terms of finding the gold or where they should be at the event, there's something to be said for sometimes not caring about this. For half of the people, we can get people onto the mobile app and there's customer journeys and all the rest, but for the other half, it's not working that way. So, and I've seen people in our industry, you'll probably know who I'm talking about, but I've seen people how they protect their time as well. So they'll figure out a way how to get into huddles, and if they're not getting what they're getting, they're going to something else, and it's kind of going to the next huddle can be the difference. So, so you're always fishing. You really don't know where, and you don't know when you're going to meet the person at the show that you didn't expect was going to be there. So there's that win as well. And I'd say serendipity has a big role to play.
All right, Marc. Well, before we let you go, do you have any final thoughts and anything about where people can find you in particular at Unleash?
At Unleash? I would say come to the show, enjoy the show. There's so much going on. There's lots of side events. It is Vegas, so there's a lot of distraction as well. There's constant distraction. So, don't get pulled away.
Just to make sure we ground people, where is Unleash happening next and when?
So kickoff is St. Patrick's Day, 17th of March. It's 3 days. Everything's going on in Caesars Forum, which is not to be confused with the Forum Shops or Caesars Palace. It's across on the other side of the strip, but Caesars Forum, probably one of the coolest convexes or conference exhibition halls in Vegas. It's right at the foot of the high roller.
All right. Well, we all look forward to seeing everybody there, and I think it's going to be a really wonderful moment.
See you in Vegas.
See you in Vegas.
Thanks so much for joining us, Marc. Ready to Leadership Corner, Meg?
I love the Leadership Corner. Let's do this thing.
Okay, so this one is from a listener who was recently promoted into a senior leadership role.
Ooh, congratulations.
Yes. Overnight, my peer group shifted. I'm now more senior than many of the people who used to feel like peers. I know in my gut, what the right structural decisions are, but the relational dynamic has shifted, especially with some women colleagues. There's friction, pushback, and a subtle change in energy. How do you move from being one of the group to being the senior leader without feeling a sense of personal loss? How do you set boundaries without it feeling like betrayal? This is a juicy dilemma.
This
Meg.
is where it all gets real. I think we've both experienced this, Amy, in different ways, and not only with female colleagues. Although I do recognize that there's often a different way it shows up. So I think I first want to go to the emotional piece, the feeling that you have that is tied to loss, and also the doubts within yourself that are kind of embedded in that question. And first, I would really encourage you to take some time and maybe even do some journaling about this, because there really is loss for the relationship shift. And I think you are doing yourself the right thing to name it. And I think you need to take time with that, because your ability to be successful going forward requires you to get into the headspace of your new role. It requires you to truly own the authority and the responsibility of your new role unapologetically. So taking some time to process and then move on from that is really important. You are not responsible for how other people react, but you are responsible for your own behaviors, and that you show up with both integrity and with humility, like that you really do create space for others. Don't get too ahead of yourself. But you have a bigger responsibility, and you owe it to that bigger responsibility to show up with the authority required to achieve what you need to achieve in the new role. So it sounds to me like you know what the right things to do are, and you're just needing the confidence to step into that bigger role and to create for yourself permission to behave the way that you need to behave for that new role. So own that, be that, give space and a ton of respect for everyone else around you. Elevate their opinions as much as you can, but don't give up your power, and definitely remind yourself what is needed for your role. You've been given a role because you have the ability to do a great job in it, and you need to not diminish your ability to do that by holding the weight of everybody else's emotional state. What do you think, Amy?
One of the things that Meg and I have talked about in the past that I think is really important to bring forward here is this concept of laying out your ideal org structure. And I think it's particularly brilliant in this case, because what this does is it creates kind of an objective, like outside in perspective. So you can strip away a lot of the emotion. So yes, deal with the grief on the one hand, right? Like you want to soothe your heart. But in terms of like figuring out the work, really put pen to paper to figure out, okay, what is the org structure that I want? What are the types of skills and the types of qualities and capabilities that I need for these different roles to do this kind of work? And do that really completely separate from any understanding or relationships that are in place. And then after you have that, then start looking at the people in your organization and start to understand, who is going to fit and in what ways, and where do you have major gaps, and be really clear about that. So really having kind of this objective perspective, I think, is important, because the reality is that these people that you were chummy with before, some of them are going to be part of where you're going forward, and some are not going to be part of where you're going forward. And so, getting that clear picture is really important. The other thing that I would say So on the one hand, there's kind of the grief that you need to deal with, and then the objective, like how do I figure out my structure and how do I move forward? The other thing is maybe a little bit more in the middle, and is how I like to think of how I can continue to have relationships and energy even in my new leadership role. And that is thinking about role modeling and thinking about lifting others up. So now, granted, not everyone is going to be in that new org structure and is going to fit this new model, but those that are, make sure that they are starting to see you as, you know, they see you as a role model. And so they are wanting to be like you. And for you to be very conscious, very explicit in terms of lifting them up and making sure that they get spotlighted, that they get that they get attention, that you are appreciating them. Again, not when it's not warranted, but when people in that org that are junior to you now are maybe feeling a little bit of slight and they're awesome, you want to make sure that they continue to feel awesome.
Yeah, I think there's something that's a little nugget inside there that I think most people miss in this. And that is, you really need to be clear to yourself that this is a new job. And I think that's embedded in Amy's advice. But not thinking of this as a step function or a slight progression of your old job. This is a new job. And this new job requires new things of you, and it requires new focus. So the fact that you have the job, you should treat it like any new job you take on. You should take the time to have conversations with people, get their advice, solicit ideas, all of those things you do when you onboard to a new job. You should not forget to do those things when you step up in a bigger role, because most of the time you're going to leave a lot of opportunity on the table if you don't force yourself to look at it with those new eyes. So to Amy's point, build your new org, but also really invest in the relationships just as you would if you just came in fresh.
Yeah, that's such a great way to put it, Meg.
We believe in you.
Okay, Meg. So time to wrap up. Any thoughts from our discussion with Marc today?
Yeah, so I was just delighted to be reminded about how important it is to lean on collective wisdom, like Dr. Ferguson advised us in season 1. The idea that we can lean on each other in this moment, because as I said, 2026 is a year of action, not a year of talk. And I think we do need to have our own emotional reserves built up and our own idea engines flowing. So using in-person experiences like Unleash to create new pathways for yourself is a great way to engage in new ideas and also to build the confidence that we all need to get moving in 2026. Because I just don't think sitting around and hoping for the AI to go away or this pressure to change or volatility to leave is going to work out well for anyone. So I wish us all luck, but I think this is a way that we need to step into giving ourselves agency in navigating this. What about you, Amy?
As HR leaders, what I would highly recommend is that you go beyond the walls of HR and think beyond just, how can we adopt AI in HR to appease requests at the top or to dabble in some interesting things. And instead, understand that the real opportunity that you have in front of you is to get closer to the work and to really think about how to connect what the business needs with what AI can do and what the workforce can accomplish by redesigning and reimagining workflows and being at the center of that and bringing in all of the different people that can contribute to that. Because, like Marc said earlier, the AI capability is moving fast, but it is so difficult to get the human change management going, and that is your specialty, and they need you in order to make the business succeed.
I can think of no more important time. Let's invent the future together, everyone. I believe in us.
Let's make every day count.